Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to listen to my speech today. My name is Ghebriela Araya. I am one of the undergrad students here, and today I'll be talking to you about effects of smoking abstinence on the subjective effect of caffeine. So how I came up with this conversation or this topic was one day we were so slow at work, and so I had a conversation with one of the doctors where he told me how in the past when the patients came in to see him, they if there was some kind of issue going on, he would light up his cigarette and be like, hey, let's figure this out. And then so one of the patients that he had to tell him to quit smoking. There was no way else to figure out his trouble. So what he did was it would be hypocritical kind of thing, like if you told him, hey, stop smoking while he was smoking. So he told him, if I quit, I'll quit. So they both quit, and the doctor was telling me how he was a very heavy drinker of coffee. He loved his coffee. He still loves his coffee. So when he stopped smoking, he woke up in the middle of the night very hyperactive, and he didn't know what was going on and all that. And so he figured out that it had to do with the smoking. So he did a research, and so my research was based on that. So what they say is that my point is people who are in the process of quitting smoking shouldn't actually reduce their caffeine intake once they have started smoking. I mean, started stopping, quitting smoking. Sorry, I'm kind of mixed up there. So once they stop quitting, like once they started quitting smoking, they shouldn't reduce their caffeine intake. And even though some research they say that the caffeine level will go up and increase different symptoms. And this research is the one that will kind of help me explain this to you guys today. And so their requirements were in the newspaper ad. They say 18 to 60 years old, they had to smoke 10 cigarettes per day or more, and they had to use caffeine on daily basis, no psychiatric, alcohol, or drug abuse in the past year, and not using psychoactive medication or illicit drugs. And they cannot be attempting to change their eating or exercise patterns for this time period of the research that they were doing. They can't be on no medical contraindication to use caffeine, so they can't have any medication that was contraindicating or contradiction with caffeine, and they can't be pregnant or breastfeeding. So the participants that qualified were 21 of them, and of all those, only 14 were successfully finished this research. And the reason being is either they had the withdrawal symptoms or unknown reasons, or they just backed out. And some of them they actually were disqualified because they didn't follow some rules. And so their average age was 42, with the standard deviation of 9 years, and the weight was 72 kgs with the standard deviation of 6, and they smoked average of 23 cigarettes per day, and the mean Fagerström test for nicotine dependence score was 6.7 actually, which was the moderate dependence. So the methods they used was they had abstinence week and smoking weeks, and so their design was ABABA. So it was 5 weeks. So they had 3 weeks of abstinence week every other week, that is, and 2 weeks of smoking week. So during the abstinence week, there was no caffeine, alcohol, or nicotine from Sunday 11 p.m. until the end of that Thursday when the session ended. During smoking week, they had no caffeine overnight prior to each test session at all. And during test sessions, there was no smoking at all. So during that almost 4 hours that they were being tested every half hour for 10 to 15-minute cycles, they couldn't smoke. So in the smoking weeks, those 2 weeks that they were allowed to smoke, they didn't want them to have like a withdrawal symptoms. So they had them smoke one cigarette right before the testing session began. So here's the table. It kind of shows the testings were done like every Tuesday and Thursday. So on the first week, like they had 36 hours of deprivation from smoking. On that Thursday before they started was 84. So they gave them like 200 milligram caffeine on both days to see like how it affected it. And then on the following week when they were allowed to smoke, like they were given 400 milligram caffeine and 200 milligram on that Tuesday and Thursday to see how that affected also. So on that Tuesday as well, it continued. It was abstinence week, so they didn't give them any caffeine to see how that affected. And then on that other week, on that first Tuesday, They gave them no caffeine at all, and they allowed them to smoke. So on that Thursday, they didn't do any testing. So the following week, they did 36 hours of abstinence from smoking and 84 hours of abstinence from smoking. So they give them the 400 milligram to test on. So some of the withdrawal symptoms of the tobacco are like craving for tobacco, irritation, anger, increased appetite, weight gain, and all those. So the results that were shown were that when they were in the abstinence from smoking, um, okay, I'm sorry, when they had abstinence from smoking, the increase was anger, confusion, depression, tension, and hunger. Those really, really increased. And then the p-value, which is like if it's closer to zero, that means there was less error made during this testing session. It shows that all of them, they were like not even 0.01, 0.1. They were all like 0.04 to 0.09, the highest, as you can see in the p-value table. And then the caffeine actually decreased the headache, drowsiness, and fatigue. The only thing it increased was desire for cigarettes, because the more they had caffeine, their body was used to suppressing the caffeine or getting rid of it faster. So it's kind of wanted them to smoke more, but and it had the p-value of 0.05, so this was accurate. But they had some issues with the testing. There were some errors. So when they corrected the errors, these values were negligible. So technically, they found out what they found out was there was no relationship between the caffeine abstinence and smoking abstinence or caffeine levels at all. And so, in order to minimize these errors as well, they did the complete within participants design, and then they had wide range of abstinence during duration and dose ranges. Because in the past, they never tested the caffeine levels to start with, so it was like random. They didn't know, and then they didn't have like 36 to 84 hours difference. They only did it like at 12 hours or 14 to 16 hours, but nothing like more than that. So they've never tested it like, oh, how does this affect on different ranges, you know? So what they did was also they had wide range of subjective effect measures, like I showed in the fourth slide, sorry. They made sure that they had no drug, alcohol abuse, or psychiatric problems or medication that were gonna falsify this testing. And so they also had the biochemical verification of abstinence in order to make sure that they didn't break rules. That's how some of them get disqualified, because they either smoked when they weren't supposed to smoke or had caffeine when they weren't supposed to have caffeine. So what they did was they checked for their carbon monoxide levels each time, and they would have them come in at 12 hours or something to see like how the levels change. And also they checked their saliva for the caffeine levels as well, among others. So the conclusion that they came up with was that changing caffeine intake during smoking cessation does not change the withdrawal symptomatology. And this was also proven in the research that was done in 1994. And all this research that they did, by the way, was they had like about 20 references, so they made sure that the ups and downs, they took some idea from there, and so that what mistakes that they did, so in order to make sure that everything was accurate. And then the caffeine reduction can induce withdrawal symptoms of headache, fatigue, and drowsiness was some of the symptoms that they discovered. And then the other research that actually helps their hypothesis in this point is there was a research done in 95 that depriving oneself from two reinforcers is more difficult and less likely to be successful than a single reinforcer. So the double would be like the two reinforcers would be like reducing caffeine and smoking, even though the caffeine level in our body was suppressed down by the smoking chemicals, the caffeine was still in our body. So once you deny the body that, it will be confused, there will be withdrawal and all that thing. And then with the smoking, not only will it be difficult, it would be almost impossible that it would be less encouraging for people to quit smoking. They would actually go back to their old habits. So they say that you have to get rid of one old habit and then replace it with a new one, not get rid of two habits at the same time, which is very difficult because you're already addicted to it on its own. It's hard, and adding two things, it's very difficult. So they say there's no need to decrease smoking. So that concludes my speech for today. And if you have any questions, I'll take them at this time. Thank you.